Intermarriage, the union between individuals from different ethnic, cultural, or religious backgrounds, has been a topic of discussion throughout history. The impact of intermarriage can be both positive and negative, and its consequences are often debated within societies. One biblical passage that sheds light on this topic is Nehemiah 13:15-22, where the prophet Nehemiah confronts the people of Judah for intermarrying with foreigners. Interracial and intercultural marriage has become increasingly common in today's society, leading to a significant impact on families, communities, and even the larger social fabric. While many celebrate these unions as a sign of progress and inclusivity, others have raised concerns about the potential loss of cultural identity and the erosion of traditional values. In the book of Nehemiah, specifically in Nehemiah 13:15-31, we find an account of how the intermarriage between the Israelites and foreigners had a profound impact on the community. The passage describes how Nehemiah, the governor of Judah, discovered that many Jews had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. This was troubling because these nations were known for their pagan practices, and marrying their women posed a threat to the spiritual and cultural integrity of the Jewish people. As a result, Nehemiah took decisive action to address the issue, including rebuking the men responsible and reminding them of the consequences of intermarriage. He also went as far as physically enforcing the separation of the guilty parties to reaffirm the sanctity of Jewish identity and cultural heritage. The lessons from this biblical account provide valuable insight into the impact of intermarriage on a community. It highlights the potential for dilution of cultural and spiritual values when people marry outside of their cultural or religious backgrounds. Furthermore, it underscores the importance of preserving cultural identity and the adherence to traditional values. In today's context, the lessons from Nehemiah 13:15-31 serve as a reminder of the need for individuals and communities to carefully consider the implications of intermarriage. While embracing diversity and inclusivity is important, it is essential to be mindful of the potential impact on cultural identity and heritage. It is crucial to approach intermarriage with sensitivity and to actively preserve and celebrate the richness and diversity of different cultural traditions. Ultimately, the impact of intermarriage is a complex and multifaceted issue that requires thoughtful consideration and dialogue. By drawing insights from historical accounts such as Nehemiah 13:15-31, we can gain a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities associated with intercultural unions and ultimately strive to build stronger, more inclusive communities. 15. In those days saw I in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves and lading asses, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I testified against them in the day wherein they sold victuals. 16. There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, which brought fish, and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah, and in Jerusalem. 17. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah, and said unto them, What evil thing is this that ye do, and profane the Sabbath day? 18. Did not your fathers thus? And did not our God bring all this evil upon us, and upon this city? Yet ye bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath. 19. And it came to pass, that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut, and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I at the gates, that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. 20. So the merchants and sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. 21. Then I testified against them and said unto them, Why lodge ye about the wall? If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth came they no more on the Sabbath. 2. And I commanded the Levites that they should cleanse themselves, and that they should come and keep the gates to sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember me, O my God, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of thy mercy. Discussion questions. 1. What motivated the people to break their promise about doing business on the Sabbath? So, what can you do to safeguard against regression and or going back on commitments that you have made? 3. How did Nehemiah react? What can we learn from his reaction? First, was he too extreme or aggressive in his response to the traders? Why or why not? Ephesians 5:11-12 have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. Psalm 94-16. Who will rise up for me against the wicked? Who will take a stand for me against evildoers? James 5:20. Whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins. Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. James 4:4. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. 1. People were breaking the Sabbath. In chapter 10, we saw that the people had made a commitment to honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy. One part of that commitment was to stop doing business on the Sabbath. Here we see that the people regressed in this area. They failed to honor their commitment. It wasn't a lone segment of society either. The sin was widespread and pandemic. It included treading wine presses, transporting goods, importing merchandise, and doing business. It appears that non-Jews were the ones doing a lot of the actual work. So what is the problem? The problem is twofold. 2. The Jews were basically exploiting what they may have considered to be a loophole in the law. While some of them were not breaking the letter of the law, they were breaking the spirit of the law. For example, they might have said something like, "We are not allowed to transport items for selling, but there is no law saying we can't buy from someone who does." A similar example would be a farmer saying, "I am not working in the field, I am only watching the person I am paying to do the work in the field." This law should not have been reduced to a list of things they weren't allowed to do. The purpose of the law was to rest from their normal activities for the purpose of honoring God. While going to walk around a busy market may not have expressly broken any laws, it was certainly not what God intended for this day. Application. We should never look at an issue from the perspective, the Bible does not say I can't do this, so I will. That is completely the wrong perspective. We should look further than the letter of the law and consider the spirit of what God intended. We should evaluate our own motives and our own consciences. We should do all to glorify God. When considering whether or not we should do something, what is a better question to ask than the statement, the Bible does not say I can't do this, so I will? They were enabling other people to break God's law. See Exodus 20, 8-10. Consider the logic of their thought process. 1. It is sin to do work on the Sabbath. 2. I will not do work on the Sabbath. 3. But I will pay someone else to do the work for me on the Sabbath. What is the matter with this thought process? Application. We should not look the other way while other people sin. Neither should our behavior enable other people to sin. We do not want to cause anyone to stumble. It is not wrong for me to have a drink of wine, but should I encourage a recovering alcoholic to do so? The Bible says it is wrong to take a bribe, but is it wrong to give a bribe? We should evaluate our actions to make sure both that we ourselves are not sinning and that we are not contributing to or enabling someone else to sin. We need to be mutually responsible to help those around us by discouraging them from sin and holding them accountable so that they won't sin. 3. Then I reprimanded the nobles. See cross references on exposing sin. Nehemiah doesn't turn the other way. He doesn't ignore the problem. He doesn't sweep it under the rug. He doesn't minimize it. He sees a sin problem and he confronts it head on. Neither does he candy coat it. Instead, he calls it this evil thing and profaning the Sabbath. He is so uncomfortable about the sin, he cannot remain silent. His conscience demands that he speak out. When he does, he doesn't beat around the bush. Application. In the modern world, speaking out against sin is not considered virtuous. Tolerance and understanding are instead valued. People who speak out against sin may be labeled as bigots, haters, or religious freaks. Certainly, we should care about people's feelings. We shouldn't hurt people's feelings for no reason. We shouldn't say things with the purpose to hurt others. However, we should care about the truth more than we care about people's feelings. We should care about the truth more than we care about people's emotions. If speaking out the truth causes someone to get their feelings hurt, this should not keep us from saying what needs to be said. 4. Verses 19 to 21. Nehemiah was not only a good motivational speaker, he was a man of action. He saw a problem, and he took action to deal with it. He commanded that the gates be closed and the traders' merchants not even be allowed into the city. Many of the traders and merchants did not listen to the new policies that they were not welcome to trade on the Sabbath day. Thinking of the amount of money they could make, they decided to camp outside the walls in hopes this policy would be reversed. Nehemiah stopped this idea quickly by threatening physical force against anyone who camped outside the walls. What do you think of Nehemiah's threat? Was he too extreme? Let's look at the result. It was effective. Verse 21 tells us that from that time on, they did not come on the Sabbath. We should note that Nehemiah was the governor. He had the authority to command that the gates be shut, and he had authority to threaten and to use force on those who didn't listen. He was not overstepping his authority. He was using his authority to glorify God and edify his people. What can we learn from Nehemiah's reaction to all of these problems? How can we apply what we learned to our own lives? 5. Verse 22. Nehemiah restores the Levites to their proper positions and shows them how they can start serving God again. Their first task is to serve as gatekeepers, to keep the traders and merchants out on these days. In addition, they are to consecrate this day. 6. Remember me. Nehemiah asks God to remember him for what he had done. This is the same request he makes in verse 14. We ourselves would only want to pray this if we were serving God faithfully. Otherwise, we would want God to forget what we had done. Let us ask God to give us the strength to serve him faithfully, believing and knowing that he will reward us for the things we do for him while we are on this earth. (23) In those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. 24 And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. 25 And I contended with them, and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, and made them swear by God, saying, Ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. 26 Did not Solomon king of Israel sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. 7 Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our God in marrying strange wives? 28 And one of the sons of Joiada, the son of Eliashib the high priest, was son-in-law to Sanballat the Horonite. Therefore I chased him from me. 29 Remember them, O my God, because they have defiled the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood and of the Levites. 30 Thus cleansed I them from all strangers, and appointed the wards of the priests and the Levites, every one in his business. and for the wood offering at times appointed, and for the first fruits. Remember me, O my God, for good. Discussion questions. 1. What was the reason they should not marry foreigners? 2. How does Nehemiah react? 3. Was his reaction too extreme, aggressive? Why or why not? Q. What principles can we learn from him? Should we also react to sin like he does? Fees. What example does Nehemiah give? Kix. What can we learn from the fact that both he and we today give Solomon as an example of the dangers of marrying an unbeliever? Cross references. Deuteronomy 7:3. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons. 1. The people had intermarried, and their children couldn't even speak the language of Judah. In the past chapters, we have looked at this problem several times. Unfortunately, though, there were periods of victory and repentance. Those times of victory were short-lived. Once again, the people were falling into this sin. Part of the reason was that Nehemiah was gone. When he was gone, no one kept them accountable. We need to make sure someone is keeping us accountable. One result of these intermarriages was that it affected the children as well. Many of these children could not speak the language of Judah. Is it likely that their parents were teaching them to worship and honor Jehovah in foreign languages? Very doubtful. Speaking in foreign languages was one external sign that the children were losing their own culture and following the foreign culture, including giving up worship of the one true God, whose law was written in Hebrew, and worshiping idols. Application. When someone sins, his sin will affect other people. In few other areas is this as evident as the sin of marrying unbelievers. It is very difficult for a parent to raise her children to believe and honor God if her spouse does not do so himself. Why is it so difficult? 2. It takes a lot of time to teach someone about God. Both the mom and the dad need to expend a lot of time to raise their children to know God. If one parent does not, then the burden falls completely on the other parent, and a lot of times they don't have enough time or commitment to do it well. It takes a lot of discipline to raise a child correctly. Discipline will be most effective when mother and father agree and support each other. Imagine a case, and it is not hard to imagine, as I have heard of many, where the father refuses to discipline his children or even forbids the wife to do so, and the wife tries to discipline the child on her own. How will the child view this? It takes a lot of prayer to raise a child. If only one parent is a believer, you lose half the prayer support. It takes a lot of modeling. If one parent does not believe, it not only robs the child of a good model, but instead gives the child a bad model to follow. Mommy doesn't go to church or read the Bible. Why should I? The unbeliever will generally not only be an absent neutral party, but will actively teach the child many things that are contrary to the word. 3. Nehemiah contended with them. He cursed them, struck them, and pulled out their hair. Let's open up the table for comments on this. What can we learn from Nehemiah? Was he too extreme? Too violent? Should we do this? Why or why not? If not this, then what should we do? 4. Nehemiah gives Solomon as an example. From this we learn that truth doesn't change. Nehemiah understood the story of Solomon in the same way that we do today. He applied the same principles of interpretation as we should. The lessons and the conclusion from the story of Solomon is the same now as then. The truth of that story did not change in between the time of Solomon and Nehemiah, and it hasn't changed from the time of Nehemiah until now. From this, we learn that the Bible is not an allegory. We cannot seek to interpret the Bible by starting the question, what does it mean to me? It doesn't mean different things to different people, or it shouldn't. It also doesn't mean different things in different times or in different culture. Truth is unchanging. There is only one correct interpretation, only one correct understanding of any given text. There are many applications, but one unchanging truth. 5. If Solomon fell, so can we. Solomon was not immune to the temptations of sin. His wisdom and knowledge and love for God did not prevent him from sinning. Neither are you immune. How can we take steps to guard against going down the path of Solomon? See 1 Peter 5:8. 6. Nehemiah drove away those who disobeyed. He refused to compromise. He didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. Nehemiah was an all-in type of person. He realized that a person either obeys God or he doesn't. And if a person obeys God, he should obey God in every area, not just the convenient areas. 7. Remember them. We have seen that God remembers those who serve him. We also see that Nehemiah prays that God will remember those who disobey him. Will he? If a person does not repent, God will remember their sins and judge them for it. If their sins caused others to stumble, he will judge them even more severely. The good news is that if a person repents, he will remove their sin as far as the east is from the west. Psalms 103:12. God sees and knows what you do. Live your life in such a way that God will one day look at you and say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." 8. Then I purified them. Nehemiah is not satisfied with the work that has been done. He is not satisfied with the changes he has helped to instill. He wants to make sure that the right environment is created such that these positive changes will continue forward into the future. With that vision in mind, he appointed duties for all of the priests and Levites. Nehemiah was only one man. It was their job to ensure that a good model was set for the people and to help make sure that these lapses into sin did not happen again. Comment. Leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts of this Bible study on Nehemiah 13, 15, 22. We want to help you study the Bible, obey the Bible, and teach the Bible to others. Thank you for joining us today as we explored the impact of intermarriage through the lessons from Nehemiah 13, 15 to 31. May we all strive to build bridges and foster understanding while staying steadfast in our faith. Until next time, take care and God bless.